Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
The last couple of weeks, I've had an opportunity to be a guest on some podcasts. We're talking about the new book, Winning Begins at Home. Been a lot of fun. It's interesting. I had 2 or 3 people tell me, I wish I had had this book 20 years earlier. It's so important for us to get wise advice on the front end. Welcome to the Lead Everyday Show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
And I'm Mark Miller.
And Mark, the question today, we've been in these questions the last few days here that our listeners have submitted. And here's today's question. What do you wish you would have learned about leadership 10 years earlier? I think this is such a great question. There's so many things when I hear them, I think, I wish I'd have known that earlier in my career. Not just winning at home stuff, but winning at work kind of stuff as well. And we talked yesterday about the entry level person. I think getting on the path. I mentioned at the end of the show yesterday, if you're looking for something to help you grow, I think the Lead Everyday Academy is a good place. LeadEverydayAcademy.com. You can check that out. But there's a lot of stuff that we talk about there that I would love to have known a lot earlier than I did. But a lot of stuff here that we can talk about. So glad to hang out with you here on Friday, and let's see if we can maybe, I won't call it regret, but we can reminisce on maybe some of the stuff that we wish we'd known a while back.
Okay. Well, I want to answer the question 2 ways. I want to specifically answer the decade question.
Yeah.
But, I've had the opportunity to lead for a lot longer
More
than
than one decade.
More than one decade.
And
decades.
I have to.
And I'm having thoughts about what I wish I'd have known 40 years ago.
Okay. We're going to broaden their question.
Well, I mean, we can talk about both, but 40 years ago, I was focused exclusively on results, and I still have that bias, and I think I'll have that bias until I die. We talk about this in Uncommon Greatness, that one of the fundamentals that we see in the lives of uncommon leaders is they value both results and relationships. And I was way too slow to understand that the way to maximize results is not to focus exclusively on results. If you want to maximize your performance and the performance of those you lead, the leader's responsibility is to value both.
Right.
And so it took me way too long to figure that out.
And I would even build on that and say the way to maximize relationships is not just to focus on relationships. Because a lot of people, every person I know wants to be a part of something beyond just a friendship.
Right.
I mean, at work. I mean, we're not trying,
Yeah. So the magic is in the and.
Right. And truthfully, you're not going to be both. We're saying we need to value both. And
right. Very few leaders I know manifest both naturally. And I always say I don't even like those people. Earlier. Yeah. I don't like those people because leading's too easy for them.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
For the rest of us, those that are more results oriented, and for those that are more relationship oriented, that finding a way to value both is really challenging.
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand that early on, and took me far too long to figure out that I needed to compensate.
Yeah, that's good. I think when I think about this question, there are seasons of leadership, and I'm going to take a little bit of a different spin on it too. I think there are things I wish I'd known earlier, but truthfully, I'm going to go back to something you said. I think it was yesterday. You talked about evaluated experience. I think there's something about going through stuff and not knowing why you're going through. Now, you need to learn as much as you can so you can avoid, I got all that. But I think there's also stuff that you learn. It's the old school of hard knocks stuff. There's some of that really makes you more resilient, and it makes you get up off the mat. And, when you fall down, and if you give yourself permission to learn all along the way, do I wish there were things I knew? Yeah, but truthfully, if I'm learning all along the way, then there's things that you just don't know until you know. And
it's all valuable.
It is all valuable. And I've heard you say before that the best way to learn to be a good leader is to actually lead something. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we appreciate the fact that leading something when we don't know what we're doing, go back even to the entry level person. It's hard. It's supposed to be hard. Go back when you were, starting out though, and those results even, we do have massive amounts of energy when we're young. I mean, it's amazing how much energy you have. And as you get older, you do have more experience and you have less energy. So I'm not even sure that's part of the answer here, but it's just part of the reality. When I look back on my career, going through those stages and those seasons, it was really important to continue to learn through those. And yet you just don't know what you don't know until you know it. I mean, till you live it. And so I don't know if that's probably not an answer, but I'm just rambling here with some what this question caused me to think about.
Yeah. So let's go back to the last decade. I started a discipline not quite a decade ago that I should have started earlier, and that was tracking my time. I was introduced to the concept by Peter Drucker. Folks that have listened to our stuff or read some of my books know that I'm a huge fan of Peter Drucker. And he used to advocate that every 6 months, leaders should spend 2 weeks tracking their time. And he said, you'll learn something every time you do that. Well, I had done that sporadically earlier in my life, and I always got value from it. And then I encountered a leader who I admired and respected. And here's basically what he said. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, well, if you get value from doing that twice a year,
well, when you do it all the time,
why don't you do it all the time?
Yeah.
And this was a leader who tracked all of his time.
Yeah.
And not as a historian necessarily, but so that he could make wise decisions to affect the way he used his time in the future. And so
it's part of that evaluated experience.
It really is. Then you set targets as to how you're going to allocate your time. And I've been doing that almost a decade.
Yeah.
And it was one of those habits that was transformative. And so that answers the question 10 years ago. I wish I'd have known it 10 years ago, but I wish I'd have known it 40 years ago.
Yeah, I want to play on that, and I'll say 10 years earlier, because we've been doing this probably, you may have been doing it longer than I have, but for 20 plus years, maybe even longer, it's a little bit of what you just talked about, but the whole life planning thing and the having an annual plan. I wish I had started that 10 years before I did. I mean, again, I've been doing that for probably 20 years, but it's just what you just talked about.
It's a level of intentionality.
It really is. And I think that focus there,
yeah.
I wish I had done that a decade earlier. I think that would have been exposed to that a decade earlier.
Yeah. Thankfully, I started that a long, long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. But that gives you that level of focus of being.
Focus and intentionality and accountability.
And strategy, in your life. I think that's so important. So there's so many things that, that come to mind here when I think about what I wish I'd known a little earlier. But the truth is, you don't know what you don't know, and
you do what you can.
You do what you can with what you got, and you just keep learning day by day, and evaluate experience is so important. So it's a great question. We'll continue. We're gonna answer some more questions next week. We're gonna do this for a couple more weeks. So many great questions you've given us. We're thinking about stuff that we hadn't probably thought about enough,
but before you close, let's give them an action item. I want you to go back to something that happened last week. A presentation, a performance evaluation that you conducted with somebody, depending on your role and responsibility. If you're a consultant, think about your last visit. Go back to something you did last week and devote a half hour to what worked, what didn't work, what led to your successes. Were there any missteps? And what would you do differently if you had a chance to do that again? Because my bet is that you will.
I love that. Assess and adjust. That's fantastic. All right. Remember, the best leaders lead every day. We'll see you guys next week.